now for CRA. So
yeah, cool.
Hello and welcome, one and all. Welcome to another incredible Light 'em Up live session. We've been waiting for this so long, and everybody was fired up and excited for tonight's show and tonight's special guest. I'm truly happy and honored that Mr. Jorge Padrón is with us here today, and we're really looking forward to an inspiring and enlightening conversation. Mr. Padron, thank you so much for doing us the honors for being here with us today, and welcome to Light 'em Up.
well, thank you, Reinhard, for having me on. For me, it's always a fun thing to do to speak to the people that smoke our products and to maybe share some stories and tell a little bit more about the Padron philosophy. So thank you very much.
That's wonderful to hear. As always, for all our dear guests, when you're watching on Facebook, please feel free to put all your questions underneath the live stream into the comments, and we'll make sure to forward them to Mr. Padron. For all of you guys here at the lounge, you're our dear friends, regulars, the family. So thank you for tuning in yet again. You know the spiel. If you have any questions, please make yourselves heard or put something into the chat box. And without further ado, let's dive right in. And Mr. Padron, I'm really curious, as you grew up surrounded by tobacco and cigars, do you still recall some of those earliest sensory memories that you still carry with you and hold dear to your heart to this very day?
I mean, absolutely. In our family, we grew up around tobacco. So everything we did, remember, growing up, our business was not like it is now. My father had a very difficult start and a very difficult beginning to how this company was founded. When I was born into my parents lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, and my sister and I were already born. So it was my parents in one bed, and then my sister and I in cribs across from them across the bed. So I certainly remember vividly, growing up, we didn't really do a lot of vacations. We didn't, most of the time my father was always working, but I do remember spending a lot of time in the factory because my mother would always also work there. So after school, we would go there and hang out and wait for them to leave. So, I grew up in the factory. So for me, it's a great thing to be where I am now. So many years later, to see how far this company has gone, because of the hard work that both my father and I have done. But I always go back to what he's done and what he did to put us in the position, to capitalize on the work. It's not hard to sell a Padron cigar.
Mm-hmm.
The hard part is making it, and that's really the challenging thing for us is to maintain that quality that my father was always so adamant about protecting. So there's a great sense of responsibility, but great memories that have gotten me to where I am and allow me to make decisions into the future.
I once read in an interview of yours that in all the years you spent next to your father, you supposedly learned more than in all the years that you spent at school. What were some of the core principles and the work ethics that your father installed in you?
There's so many things that I learned from him. There's a big difference between theory and practice. And obviously, we cannot diminish the importance of an education, of a formal education, but there's a lot to be said for the education on the street, for common sense. many times you run into people who have very extensive degrees, but they lack maybe common sense. And my father was not one that went to college. He didn't have that privilege. He didn't have the luxury of doing that. But yet he was someone that had the more common sense than anyone I've ever seen, number one. And he also was someone that had a conviction, and he never wavered from that conviction. That's another thing I learned from him. And one of the most important things that my dad had was that he was very loyal, and he created many friendships with many people, including his employees. He treated them with respect, and he was someone that built relationships. And that's kind of how he built this business, relationships, not just with the customers, but also with the people who work within our company. And people just never left our side. They don't leave. When people come to work for us, they stay with us. And that's something that I think, my dad, I learned from him. I saw him in many different instances where, he was tough on one side, and then he always used to tell me, you have to have two hands, one that pats you on the back and one that slaps you in the head when you need to be slapped. But at the end, he always cared deeply for the people that worked for him. And I think that you cannot underestimate the importance of that in a business like ours that is so labor intensive, that is so dependent on people. The people that work for us, they have a deep sense of commitment. They understand that they are working at Padron, and we cannot screw this up. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of, if you know about the cigar industry, you understand that there's a lot of things that can go wrong from the moment you plant a seedling in the ground to when you end up making a cigar. There's many steps along the way. There's many people involved, and all along those steps, there's always mistakes that can be made that could end up damaging the end result. So, it's really, a commitment at every level, and that's only possible with the right people. And I think that my dad had made a tremendous effort to cultivate that commitment, and he did it by him showing respect for the people that work for him, and then it translated into a two-way street that they supported each other.
Does it sometimes feel like a bit of a burden for you as well, carrying on such a strong family legacy and such a strong history of what was before you?
I mean, honestly, it wasn't much of a burden for me. When I graduated from college, I got my MBA. I paid my dues. I mean, I've always been someone that kind of thinking ahead. And at 24, I was already worried about things that might happen 30 years down the road. So I took a lot of steps along the way to make sure that I knew the people that work here. I came to Nicaragua all the time. I was always in Nicaragua. And, I was by his side, like a silent, I didn't say a word for many years with my father. I would just stay quiet, and I would always just try to listen to what he said and how he would solve certain problems. Nowadays, it's crazy because I look at how in different industries, how, obviously there's a chain of command within a company, and there's a certain level of bureaucracy that gets formed when you start creating all these layers and layers and layers and layers, and you report to this guy and this guy reports to the other guy. And, that might be a good thing in some cases, but in other cases, it could also be very detrimental to execution. Mm-hmm. And my father was one that did not believe in that. He was someone that basically, when there was an issue that needed to be attended to or resolved, he did it immediately. He would pull in the people where there was a problem, and he would address it, fix it, and move on. And I think that served me very tremendously over 30 years by his side, to see how that mechanics, how the dynamic of that would work, and how he resolved those problems, and to the point where, my father died at 91 years of age. I earned his respect, and for shit, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years before he died, I was already making a lot of the decisions in the company. I was already very, very involved. I was responsible for many of the introductions of cigars that were done, which I had to convince him on. And sometimes it wasn't easy, but he always deferred to me because he knew that I was vested and that I would never put forth something that I didn't think would work. So, basically it was one of those things where you had to earn his trust. And honestly, the greatest gift that my dad ever gave me was to give me the reins of this company. And that's what I tell people all the time, because, this was his baby. And for him to give me control of the company is a major, that is a huge thing. It's maybe in some cases, some people may not understand what that means, but for my father, that must have, that was a tremendous decision that he made. And, he knew that I would never take advantage of my position. And we have a beautiful family that everybody gets along. We all work together. I'm very cognizant of my family. I don't try to overstep my position. And I think it works great. And he knew, and like I said, he knew that I would never take advantage of that position. So to answer the question, absolutely not. I was ready for it, and I know the process. I know everything about the business. So, I'm in a good position to go forward. I just hope my kids and the next generation comes in with the same enthusiasm that I did. And that's what, that's the challenge that we face in family businesses, right? Where maybe like they say, the first generation starts it, the second generation builds it, and the third generation fucks it up. So hopefully the third generation in our case won't do that, and they'll understand, what it takes to make the cigars that we make.
You mentioned that you got your master's degree in Miami. Was there ever a point in your personal life where you could imagine taking a career path outside of the cigar world, or was that never even a point to consider?
Well, I'm not sure how the demographics of your listeners and your audience is. The industry was not, when I graduated, I'm 50, I'm going to be 53 years old in a couple of weeks. I graduated with my MBA in 1991. 1991, the cigar industry was not anything like it is today. And even much less in the 80s as I was growing up. We had a completely different business model. And it was just night and day from where we are now. And when I graduated, my friends were asking me, well, what, are you sure you want to get into the cigar business? Because the cigar business wasn't, like I said, what it is now. I said, listen, I've got a business that my father has started. He's, it's a 27-year-old business where every single Cuban in Miami that is the most knowledgeable cigar smoker probably around is smoking our cigars. That has to mean that we're doing something right, and we have a great product. It's just a matter of, for me to be able to take that out and take it to the next level. And that was the idea. And, I took a chance on it because it was a right thing to do. And I can't even tell you how, it's been an incredible experience for me to be able to spend all these years, doing what I've done. I think I'm in the most beautiful industry in the world. There's a lot of great people. Everybody's always happy when they're smoking cigars. And when we do a cigar event, it's always fun, and people are good. There's good people. And that's, I have a lot of friends that are attorneys, and they have to complain because they got to go to work. And I go to work, I light up a cigar at 9 o'clock in the morning. I can smoke in my office. It's just, I'm privileged. I'm lucky.
Why do you think that in the cigar industry in particular, there is so much of that collaborative thinking? There is this very, just the term brothers and sisters of the leaf, the camaraderie, the community, how people get together. Why is that such a strong element of this industry, despite being competitive?
I think it's just the nature of the product. We make a product In my case, obviously, we're extremely proud of what we do. There's a lot of pride in producing a product like ours, as there is for other families that are also in the cigar business that put all their effort into trying to make the best cigars they can. So there's a lot of respect there, amongst manufacturers. We understand that everybody has different business models and everybody has different ways of getting from point A to point B. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of in the same boat. Everybody's trying to push for the same thing. And along the way, you create a lot of friendships. I mean, I'm not saying everybody gets along, because that wouldn't probably be realistic to expect. But for the most part, everyone respects everyone, and there's a sense of friendship there amongst the manufacturers, where they respect what we each of us do, and everybody just goes forward. And me in particular, I'm not on social media. I'm kind of an old soul in that sense. I have my head focused on Padron. I mean, I couldn't even sit here and tell you what other people are doing, new products that they're putting out. I don't have the slightest idea. And I mean that sincerely. I really do not try to get bogged down with what other people are doing. I focus more on what I'm doing and what we need to do to maintain the quality, to maintain how do we build the company, how do we make it better, how do we keep the customers happy. And that's really what I've always focused on. So
it has been the company's philosophy to put the quality, as you mentioned, above everything else, leaving the quantity aspect aside. Would you say there is something like a sweet spot or like a certain amount that sits on the edge of quality and quantity? Like, is there a point of no return where you would have to start compromising?
I think the issue with that is how do you grow? How do you grow the company? If you're expecting to grow 40% from one year to the next, obviously that's an unrealistic expectation if you want to maintain quality. In the cigar industry, remember, we're not producing other types of products that are simple combinations of things that you put together, and if you need more of something, you just buy it. And we're dependent on a lot of different factors. So in our case, we've always been one that we're happy with growth, but if there's no growth, then it's okay too. No problem. The important thing is the quality of the product. And we've never had a down year. I mean, since I've been working in this company, we have never had a year where our sales have been down. Some years the sales have been up more than others, but at the end of the day, the growth has been there. Now, you also have to understand that in order to grow, there's a lot of things that have to happen. It's not a simple equation where you just have, make more cigars. And no. In order to make more cigars, you need to have more tobacco, you need to have more warehouse space, you need to have more personnel to handle the tobacco, you need to have more rollers, you need to have more managers. So it's a complicated thing when you say, okay, I want to grow the company. No, you need to put everything in. Everything has to happen when it happens. Everything, you have to crawl, then you walk, then you run, and then you sprint. But you can't try to go from crawling to sprinting overnight, because like my dad would say, you would fall and you'll break your head. And that's exactly what happens in the cigar business. So, for me, if I'm thinking that I would like to grow the company a little bit more into the next 3 or 4 years, I'm thinking already now, what do I need to do? Oh, I need to build more warehouses. I need to have more tobacco. And then those are the types. And so if you grow like that and you're thinking along those lines, then you can grow the company. But if you're not, then you're going to have a tremendous problem on your hands down the road.
And especially
the other issue too, that is one that is not talked about a lot, is the human factor. There's not a lot of expertise, in this industry. There is a lot, but I'm saying in order to grow the company, like the way we like to do things, we have people in every area of our business that are managing, and then below them, we have people that are more experienced, that handle certain things. So, all of those things play a factor. And, I always ask, well, who do we have to assume this responsibility if we were to do this? Do we have someone in-house that can do this? And then that's, so those are the type of things that how I look at it,
Especially also since Padron is a vertically integrated company. And so that just means you have to put even more emphasis on the entire process, and you have many more steps along the way where you actually need to closely monitor what's going on and keep that quality up to where you want it.
Well, like for example, right now we're in the growing season, and just yesterday I was having a meeting with some other people here in Nicaragua about I'm thinking about building a new warehouse next to an existing warehouse, because we're seeing that, you know, the space, we have plenty of space, but we don't have a lot of space in this particular area. And for me, we have warehouses that are detached in other areas of Esteli, and I don't like the idea of having to move the tobacco from one area. I'd rather have a centralized location where I can store most of the tobacco that we have. So it's decisions like that, you know, we're thinking about it now, but you know, by the time that gets implemented, it could be 2 years down the road. Mm-hmm. But you know, you have to be in a position to say, okay, if we were to grow more tobacco in the upcoming years, where do we store it? How do we handle it? Who's going to handle it for us? You know, how we have the people. That's the thing.
Are these also like realizations that came along simply by working in the company or working alongside your dad? I mean, when you started to expand the family company's business, I believe you also participated in the very first trade show then in the early 90s. How did your feelings sort of evolve? What were your early aspirations and dreams? And then how did you come to those realizations that you were just describing earlier?
Well, I mean, listen, for me, it was very easy. We could only go up because my father, so I don't know if you know the history, but so my father started in Nicaragua he started in Miami in 64. He first got tobacco from Nicaragua in 1967. He started using it in his blends towards the beginning of 68. In 1970, he opened the factory in Nicaragua, which was operational all the way up to 1985. So in those 15 years, we had a civil war, and there was a lot of things that happened along the way, but he was able to maintain a good level of production. In 1978, during the war, they burned the factory in Esteli. So my father, who had already seen some of the problems that were happening politically here and the unrest that there was, he opens a second factory in Honduras in 78, I believe, 79. So he then has now the factory in Nicaragua producing, you know, probably 80% of our production. And then he's got that small factory in Honduras producing maybe 20%. So those two factories are working parallel from 78 to 85. 85, President Reagan declares an embargo on Nicaragua. In 1985, my father was producing 6 million cigars a year, okay, and selling it in Miami. So that's a big number of cigars to sell in one market, especially a market like Miami. But when Reagan places the embargo, he then has to shut down the factory in Nicaragua because we couldn't export anything out of here and into the United States. So he then shifted all the production to Honduras. In addition to not being able to produce cigars, he also didn't have access to tobacco. So what he did is he was, okay, I'm going to just make as many cigars as I can, and we'll see where this goes. And to the point where in 85, he was producing 6 million cigars a year. In 1990, when the embargo was lifted, 5 years later, our production had gone down to probably about 1 million cigars a year. Okay, so when I started working in the company, we were producing about 1 million cigars a year. So what happens? The first thing I did when I came in, I said, Dad, what the hell are we doing here? We were at 6 million cigars 5 years ago. And just because of the raw material thing, we're now down to 1 million cigars. This is not a demand issue. This is a production issue. And he's like, George, what you don't understand is that for all those years, it took me to build my brand to the point where I could sell 6 million cigars a year was for a reason, was because of the tobacco. If I start changing the blends, then it's going to completely ruin the brand. So I'd rather just sell what I can and preserve the integrity of our brand, which in those days, in that moment, to me, did not register because I'm thinking dollars. This is completely crazy what we're doing here. But whatever, I had no choice and I just went along with it. So then in 1990, when the embargo was lifted, we then come back to Nicaragua, which I was with him for that. And little by little, we had to start putting the pieces together and building the jigsaw puzzle to put us back in a position to be able to get back to that $6 million number, which I thought we would never get to. But so we didn't get back to the 6 million cigar range till 2005. So it took us 15 years to go from 1 million to 6 million. And why? Because, well, we had to build it. We had to build the warehouses. We had to, and that takes money. And, you know, it's a long process. So that's kind of how we, you know, how the company started developing over the years. And along the way, I saw how that happened. You know, it was a gradual thing. This was not something that happened overnight. So now here we are in 2021, and we're at a level that is obviously much greater than we were back then, but we still have the same principles. Okay, do we want to get to a greater number of production? Well, we got to maintain the same philosophy that we had back in 1991. You know, we got to go here, we got to do this, and then build the puzzle. So that's really how it is.
With the entire journey that you had as a brand, as a company, also you personally, Miami, Honduras, Nicaragua, and ultimately then ending up and now becoming one of the iconic, probably the most iconic brand of cigars out of Nicaragua. What does terroir and Nicaragua as a country of origin mean to you?
Well, I mean, I think that my father, when he had the opportunity to taste tobacco from Nicaragua, he immediately recognized that the tobacco from Nicaragua was, like, in his words, was the second coming of Cuba. I mean, we obviously all know the quality of tobacco in Cuba. And Cuba is a special place, there's special soil. It's a lot like wine in France and in other areas where, you know, you have different regions that grow wine or grapes, and you have different regions that grow tobacco. They're all unique in their own ways. And it's not to say that one is better or worse than the other, but there is a flavor profile that comes out of that tobacco that is, you cannot replicate it. And I think that for us, that's part of, you know, that's part of the thing is, you know, we stayed true to his philosophy. We focused on that. And that's really what it is. I mean, it was a commitment.
Is it, again, because you mentioned that earlier, like the human factor, is that also something that sort of ties into the whole concept of terroir and origin?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say the human factor. I mean, obviously the people here are critical to making things work. There's a lot of people here that are very knowledgeable because of the experience of all these years of the tobacco that's part of the culture. So there's a lot to be said for the expertise that people develop. But, you know, the soil is the soil, and you can't, I mean, there's parts of Nicaragua that the soil for me is not an area that I would ever want to use tobacco from, but, you know, some people might want to use it and it works for them. That's great. But we each have our unique, you know, combinations of tobacco that are what make our cigars what they are. And that's what we want to stay true to, you know? So.
No, it is certainly a special place. And we have Ricardo here with us, our dear friend from, well, he's sitting in the United Kingdom, but proudly representing Nicaragua and wearing the colors. Ricardo, thanks for tuning in again. And I believe you also had a question for Mr. Padron.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reinhard. It's been a while. It's been quite a few events. Unfortunately, I've been having to miss. Busy diplomatic calendar on this side of the world. But I'm delighted to be here. Great to see always your amazing audience. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of what you do. I think for the past year, what you've been doing for the whole cigar industry, bringing together consumers, bringing together iconic cigar makers in the midst difficult times that we'll experience. It's actually something that's really remarkable. And I think by now, not only us, consumers, aficionados, but cigar makers as well, as seeing that effect, that sort of ripple effect of what you created of a nice, good, strong community, despite the physical challenges of being next to each other. But for me, it's an incredible honor and a tremendous pleasure, Don Jorge, to meet you virtually for now. I've always been a tremendous fan of your cigars. I think it's perhaps one of the most prestigious and, as Reinhard said, most iconic cigars that we have. And I couldn't let the opportunity go by without first, introducing myself. I'm the Deputy Ambassador of Nicaragua to the UK, to Ireland, and to Iceland. As you would know, your cigars are loved like very few here in the UK and all the constituencies that we look after. And I have to say, it's one of those cigars that in conversations with heads of state, ministers, of all people of all types, when they talk about Nicaragua, at one point, sooner than later, Padron comes into it. And I think that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes of what it is. So I'm so happy to get this chance. I hope that I can meet you at some point in person. It's interesting. I spent 4 good years in Miami. I went to college, to Miami-Dade College. So something where you're quite familiar with, I'm sure.
Of course.
And I have a Cuban sister from Pinar del Rio as well. So I think there's a lot of similarities. I think Nicaraguans and Cubans for many.
So your sister is a Cubanica.
Well, yeah.
That's the name of our company is here in Nicaragua is Cubanica.
There you go. It's a Cubanica, absolutely. Born in Pinar, grew up in Matagalpa, so not far from Estelí.
Wow, that's fantastic.
No, but I genuinely mean it. I wanted to take the chance to express my deepest gratitude for what you and your family have done for Nicaragua. Your investment, you personally, and everyone before you, and those who will come after, have had a significant positive impact in our country, and that everyone knows it, and everybody should be grateful about, at least speaking on behalf of my people. The impact that it has, been a quarter of all the jobs in Nicaragua within the trade zone systems come from the cigar industry. And that's our biggest export, the trade zone system as a whole. Cigars being amongst them, and that well-being that you create is incredible. So for that, I'm really, really thankful. And I take the chance to also thank all the consumers that are joining us, because without you, Mr. Padron here also wouldn't be a success at all. So I think we're all here to be really grateful for that. And my question was a bit about how I've spoken with several of the cigar makers and importers here, and I think generally speaking, the cigar industry in our country fared quite well, despite having a terrible year last year in terms of, catastrophes that were not man-made, no unrest or anything along those kinds, but actually having the worst hurricane season in our recorded history and having COVID. So I was curious to see if that had any impact, or how you dealt with that. Has that in any way or form enacted you to look into a specific strategy? So just curious, for you, for Padron, what impact had it had, and what kind of resilience did the Nicaraguan people in a way or form may have played a role in that? And how was it for you, and how is it going forward after this?
Well, Ricardo, first of all, I'd like to just say it's an honor to meet you. I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day soon and getting a chance to smoke a cigar and have an adult beverage with you, maybe a good glass of scotch or something else. But obviously for us, being in Nicaragua is a certain sense of pride. My father, this was my father's second home. He spent, sometimes we used to kid with him that he used to like to spend more time in Nicaragua than he did in Miami, because he was here so much, and he just loved to be here. He loved to be around his people. And honestly, when my father passed away, it was incredible to see how all of our employees reacted to his passing, like the level of warmth, of affection that they have for him. And even to this day, you walk into every single area of our company and there's pictures of my father everywhere. So there's a deep connection between the Padron family and Nicaragua. And I expect that to continue for many, many years to come. And now to answer the question, obviously the last year has been a roller coaster to say the least. There isn't an industry that hasn't been affected in one way or another by the pandemic and all of the repercussions, everything that's come out of the situation. Obviously in Nicaragua, and in our case, it was no different. We had to take many steps initially to protect our employees. The first thing that happened when this happened back in March of last year is I was in Miami and I had a Zoom call and they projected it here all over the office. And I said to everybody, I said, listen, my number one concern here is for the safety and well-being of all of you. I will never sacrifice your health to make a cigar. So when we did that, we shut the factory down for 2 weeks just because people were very nervous. Obviously things now, you look back on it now and some people may not remember how it was at this time last year. There was a lot of uncertainty. No one knew how this thing spread, how bad it could be, how easily it could transmit. So everybody was very nervous. And I just wanted to put people at ease and say, listen, don't worry, we're not going to do anything stupid here. We're going to make sure that we do things the right way. So I closed the factory down for 2 weeks and I let everything kind of relax and simmer down a little bit to figure out what to do. And then we decided to start the factory back up 2 weeks later at half production. So we shift. So in the areas where we could spread people around and not have any type of problem with social distancing, in those areas, we kept the same normal work day that we've always had. But in the areas of production, which is obviously a much smaller area with a higher concentration of people, what we did is that we split the production in half. So we went to 2 shifts a day, starting at 5:30 in the morning, going to 1, and then another shift from 1:30 to 8 p.m. And we operated like that for almost 6 months, 7 months. And for those 7 months, this factory, everybody, like the managers were working, pretty much around the clock. Everybody put their time in. We were able to maintain the production. And, the production suffered a little bit because it's not, you can't produce the same amount of cigars in a split work shift than you can in one full day of work. So we did suffer a little bit there in terms of the quantity of production, but we were able to navigate the waters without anyone, getting sick or anybody dying, and we were able to get that through. Then in September, October, when we saw that things were coming a little bit more, calming down a little bit, we then came in and we reworked the entire factory room where we put dividers, we took all sorts of precautions for people to reintegrate everyone back into a normal work environment. And we've been doing that since October of 2020. And knock on wood, we haven't had any issues and we've been able to maintain a normal level of production. But I think, when in difficult times is when you measure what you got. Yeah. And I cannot tell you enough how proud I am of all of the people that work in this company, that they stepped up, they worked their asses off, they worked very hard to make things happen, to maintain the quality, never sacrificing that. And, we got through it. And unfortunately now we're back to normal. And, we're hopefully this thing with the vaccine, things will start to come back to normal as soon as possible. But luckily here in Nicaragua, things have been handled very well. There's a lot of precautions that people have taken, and I think it's paid off. So.
No, well, thank you so much, and I do have to say it's remarkable, and I think quite unique the level of care that your family and your company has paid attention to the people and to the quality. I think that combination comes through, and the honesty of your brand, of your cigars, staying true to what your dad started, that's incredible, and that stays through and through. And that's one of the things I think we all love so much. We hope that it continues like that for many years, and that Nicaragua is always there for you. I do hope, like you said, that either in my next visit to Miami, we can share a cigar together. I'm having one of the your 2000s, which I had a hand, which I love. But I have to say, you're in fantastic hands here in the UK. I cannot mention that. I've had the pleasure of meeting Scott Vines from Torrey Imports, who brings your cigar here to the UK. And I have to say, you're also in very good hands of a good gentleman as well. So
No doubt, no doubt.
that partnership. So thank you so much, and I look forward to maybe
Thank
sometime
you.
when you come to the UK or Germany. I'm sure sooner or later we'll get a chance to
Yeah,
say
when things come back to normal, we'll resume normal operations in that sense. So, all right. Well, thank you, Ricardo. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, Jorge.
There's another gentleman who would like to say hello to you, Mr. Padron. Alex, great to have you. Welcome back to the show.
Now you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, hello, George. How are you?
Hello, Alex. How are you?
Good to see you. Last time we were together was a little bit before all this craziness start, and we were having a adult drink at your office and smoking a Padron. Huh? I'm missing those days.
I do too. I wish unfortunately, we haven't been able to do too much of that in the last year. But you know, I'm sure that we'll have plenty of opportunities to resume those activities soon. So
yeah, sure. I would like to ask you. I remember October of last year, they came out with some news about you and Carlito Fuente doing a special cigars, each one of you, doing some kind of a celebration for each one of your fathers. I would like for you to tell us a little bit more about this concept. How did this concept came out, and how are you doing these things? You were first of all thinking to launch this in 2021 and IPCPR and PCA fair, but probably they don't have it this year as well. And tell us a little bit more about the project and the launching date.
well, I mean, obviously, it goes without saying the level of respect that I have for the Fuente family. I've been friends with Carlos for many, many years, as I was with his father. And obviously, my father was also very close friends with Carlos. And I think that there was a mutual respect there for what each of them had accomplished. I talk with Carlos quite frequently for many different reasons, but one of them is because we're both members of the CRA, and we have plenty of opportunities to talk and to discuss different things. And you know, in conversation, this came up that it would be a great thing to be able to produce cigars that in honor of each other's fathers. And you know, and that's basically how it happened. And you know, the conversation kept going, and you know, to the point where we said, you know what, we really need to do this. And that's really how it happened. It's not a very complicated thing. You know, we're both, you know, fairly simple in how we look at this project. I mean, the goal is simple: is to produce the type of product that we think are, you know, the type of product that I think Carlos would enjoy of Padron, and he's going to do the same thing with my father. So, you know, that's really where it is. You know, obviously we're extremely excited about the project, not just myself and him, but also our families, because there's also a great level of respect amongst the next generation, their friends, and we actually do spend some time. We have spent some time together. So I think that this is one of the things that make this industry as unique as it is. You know, where you can have two family businesses that have already gone through many hardships in the development of their companies, of their brands, of their families, and they can get to a point where, you know, we can sit down and say, you know what, it's time to do something that both of us can be proud of for each other, because we both represent the same type of ideals, the same type of philosophy, you know. So there's a lot of things like that there's a lot of synergy there in how we run our businesses. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of it's the same thing. I mean, there's no difference. You know, obviously Fuente is a bigger company than Padron, but the principles and the philosophy of the company are exactly the same. And obviously I have a tremendous amount of respect for Carlito. You know, Carlos is an amazing man that's very dedicated and has accomplished many, many things. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for him and what all they do in terms of charity work and in many other things. Now, with regards to the product itself, this is not a thing where we're rushing to put this product out. If we'll see what happens with IPCPR, we hope it happens, and if it doesn't, we could launch it in another way, in another location, maybe down the road. Listen, at the end of the day, the important thing is that the product come out. When it comes out, it'll come out, and it'll be a special product that'll celebrate two amazing men that had tremendous impact on this industry, and whose legacy will live on for many, many years, not just for what they did in their family life, in their personal life, but also what they did in their professional careers to preserve the integrity of the handcrafted cigar. So I'm proud to be a part of it.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually a rare thing to see a new expression of Padron cigars, or even a new line come to life, because you have such a clear and concise and superbly well-structured portfolio. We had a question over on Facebook regarding the Damaso line, which was a little bit of a novelty for Padron as well, in the sense that it didn't use a Nicaraguan sun-grown tobacco, but actually shade-grown Ecuadorian Connecticut. What was that experience like for you? And do you have any plans on sort of venturing into other projects similar like this?
We don't really have. I really never go into these things like that, like thinking, well, we're gonna do this. I mean, the Damaso line was something that came up over time, because I realized that there are many consumers who are looking for a product that maybe not as full-bodied as what we're normally accustomed to producing. So, I approached my father with the idea of doing this line, more so as an introduction into our line, into our brand and our portfolio, for those consumers who might not necessarily otherwise have done it. There are many consumers out there that would not smoke a Padron cigar because for them it may be too full-bodied of a cigar, and I was missing out on that opportunity to introduce them to what we do. So by producing this cigar, not only is it a product that is different, but it's also different in that we don't have any cigar in that classification. So I think that the goal was that it has worked. It's a product that is obviously made with the same love and affection that we do all our cigars in terms of construction, quality. It smokes great, but it's a different cigar, and I'm not afraid to do those type of things if I feel that it could enhance what we are offering in our portfolio and strengthen our brand, and it's a fun thing to do.
Scott Vines, welcome, my dear friend. Ricardo actually mentioned you earlier, so it's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for taking the time.
Hello, Scott. I can't see you. Jorge. I know you're there.
How are you?
How are you?
Good to see you. I'm very well, thank you. Good to see you. Best to the family, and I hope you're well. Is this you down in Esteli at the moment?
Yes, I'm in Esteli here.
That's where we hung out with the crazy Scottish guy, remember?
That's correct. I remember. Exactly. We had a few cocktails too.
Indeed. I've got a question for you. I remember one of the first visits, well, my first visit or your first visit to London with me, and we hosted a cigar lunch in a hotel. And there was a group of guys, and they asked a question about aging tobacco and aging cigars. And it was a really interesting little conversation, because I guess in the UK, people think they have to age their cigars for a while before they're ready to smoke. And you probably won't remember it for me, but it was a really good thing. So your view on aging tobacco and aging cigars, I'd love to hear it, please.
No, and I do remember we were sitting outside in the courtyard next to the restaurant underneath the covered terrace. I remember it vividly. Yeah. But the situation with that is, in our case, every manufacturer has a different way of looking at these things, as do consumers. we age our tobacco before it's rolled into a cigar. So in many cases, a lot of the cigars that you smoke of ours are cigars that may have only been made, a month before or maybe 2 weeks before. This cigar that I'm smoking right now was made. This was February 20. I can't even read, but I think it's February 25th. See, the 25th or the 23rd. So this cigar was made maybe 5 days ago, and I think that that's one of the things that we're a little bit different in, that my dad always had the mentality that, we produce cigars to sell and not to store. And he always used to say, I make cigars that I like to smoke, and the ones that I can't smoke, I sell. That was his saying to me. He's like, so all the tobacco that we use is already aged. So technically, it's not a cigar that needs to be put for aging. Now, having said that, there are many people out there who enjoy doing that, and that's part of their thing. They like to buy boxes and store them and keep records of when they got them, when they were made, and they age them, and they feel that the cigars are better. And again, this is such a personal thing. I would never say to anyone that that's a bad thing. On the contrary, I think that's a beauty of of our products, right? Of the cigars, that everyone has a different way to cut it, to light it, how they smoke it, if they smoke it faster, slower, how they age it, So again, it's purely a matter of choice in that regard. But as far as the tobacco itself, the tobacco is aged already, so it's technically ready to smoke when you buy it.
Yeah, it's very good. I remember that so clearly, Jorge. But we look forward to welcoming you back, and your cigars soon.
We're working on that. We're working on that.
Oh, please. Yeah, please. Okay, but good to see you, sir. Good.
Okay, Scott.
You joined us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Great talking to you.
Likewise.
Following up on that last part of the comment, and because so many people were asking, clearly, even when you're in a vertically integrated company, the one thing that is hard to control is the demand and the popularity of the product, and the people being so excited about it that it's hard to actually keep up with that demand. We had a few questions from people over here in Europe and in general outside the US regarding the availability of the Padron cigars in the international market. Could you just briefly elaborate a bit on that and tell the people
Sure.
how long they'll be waiting for the cigars, or just what to expect there?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to apologize because that's not, my goal is to always have products available for everyone to smoke. I never go into anything trying to make it difficult, obviously, for anyone to obtain our products. The problem that we had is, as I was mentioning to Ricardo, that when the last year has been very challenging from a production standpoint, to the point where our production suffered quite a bit in those first months, and we really had a hard time keeping up with demand and with orders that we had for the US. So we had to put, there was just so many things going on that we were not in a position to be able to ship a lot of product to Europe. But my goal now, and as a matter of fact, today I spent most of the day working on these types of things to see how we can start shipping product and allocating product, because I basically have to take product out of the US to ship to Europe. But I think it's an important thing because I don't want people to think that we are not, that we're doing this for any particular reason. It's a simple matter of not having the product. And, I'd rather have people angry at me for not having product as opposed to angry at me because the product is no good. So that's kind of, that's my rationale of being somewhat at ease with the situation. But obviously that's not an excuse to not be able to supply. And I'm not saying that we're going to be able to supply everything, but we certainly are going to supply product, and there will be product in the markets, probably in the next couple of months, you'll start seeing it coming through.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Ian. Always a pleasure to see you on the show. Fire away, my friend.
Thank you, Jorge, and really enjoying this. And it was a pleasure to meet you last year. And we had a really good visit to your factory, and I was very impressed. You're smoking the Padron Black, which I haven't had the chance to taste. Could you tell us a bit about that cigar, please?
So the Padron Black, this is a funny story actually, because the Black Band was a band that it was one of my first types of inventions in this company back in like 1990, must have been like 92, because it was before the anniversary line. So I wanted to show my father that I was, that the money he spent on my education was for something. So I was always trying to come to him with ideas of how to grow the business. And so the first thing I did is that I tried to convince him to change our Padron band, like the one that Ricardo is smoking, the Padron 2000, the traditional band. So I went and I had a meeting with my father, and I said, Dad, I have something that I want to talk to you about. I have something that I would like to talk to you about, because I've been thinking about this project. And so I said, he let me go into his office. I started to explain to him. I said, listen, Dad, I just wanted to talk to you because I'm noticing the band that we're using on our cigars is a very really, it doesn't say anything. It's just a plain brown band that there's no life to it. It's just kind of like blah. It needs something. And he just let me go on and on and on for about 45 minutes. After, when I stopped talking, he says, are you finished? And I said, yes, I'm finished. And he goes, do you know how many cigars I've sold with that ugly brown band that you're talking to me about right now? I've sold over 28 million cigars. So when you have a good idea, you come and talk to me. But right now, get the hell out of my office. So that was my first pitch to my father, and it was a complete disaster. About a year later, I designed this black band, which is basically very similar to the brown band, but a different color scheme and all that. And we ordered these bands in 1993, and I never used them. Never. I had them there in the warehouse. I never used them. Then when my father turned 89, okay, just maybe, I guess, whatever, he 17, he was 91. So maybe 2015, I said, you know what, in his honor, we should make a cigar with this band and make it a special cigar for him. And we did that. And that's basically how we started using the band. We did an event in Miami with a retailer in Miami, Abe from Smoke Inn. And we made these special boxes for that event to celebrate his 89th birthday. And that was the end of that. We never made any more cigars. Then we decided to make some more cigars, but not commercial. We don't sell these cigars. So what I do with these cigars now, I mean, and one day we will sell them, but for right now, we're using them primarily for fundraising purposes for the CRA. So these cigars are now all available in these packs that we sell as a group of CRA manufacturers, and each manufacturer puts a special cigar that is either difficult to get or not commercially available, and they put it in these packs, and we sell them, and we use those funds to fund the activities of the CRA. So that's what this cigar is now. We'll see what happens in the future, but I do anticipate launching a few cigars with this band and with this blend. Now, this cigar is a little bit different than the other cigars in that it's a round cigar. It's not box pressed, but it is a full-bodied cigar and not a light cigar by any stretch of the imagination. But it is round, so there are some differences in terms of the aesthetics of the cigar as well.
Is it a furrow? What's in the blend of the cigar, please?
Yeah, it's a puro. It's a Padron. I can't tell you all the secrets, because then I'd have to kill you if I tell you. So
I was hoping, because Charlie and Half Wheel doesn't know, so I hoped I might learn something if he didn't know. But
yeah, well, I mean, listen, the important thing is that the cigar has to taste good, and that's what everyone should always be concerned with. So, well, thank you.
Well, all the Padrons I've had, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Many thanks, Ian. Over to a dear friend Rod in Dubai. Brother, I know it's awfully late over where you are, but many thanks for tuning in, and please come forward with your question. Great to have you.
Absolute pleasure. It's always great to stay up and watch this. I'm sorry I've been away for a while. Jorge, it's an absolute pleasure to see you again. Hope you're doing well.
Great to see you.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, brother. Last time we met here in Dubai, it was a long time back, but we had some good time.
Absolutely.
And I hope you and the family are doing well. I've been listening to what you're saying, and obviously my question, just to qualify from the beginning, has nothing but utmost appreciation to your late father, bless his soul, to yourself and to the family as a whole. But I'm always intrigued by the topic of succession, legacy, and future legacy, if you may. One thing you said at the beginning is you said about how the first generation builds it, the second generation preserves it or grows it, and God knows what the third generation does, and hopefully they continue the growth, and that's what I'm hoping for you, obviously. Being in the shadow of such a great man in the cigar industry and such a great man in himself, like your late father, is not easy. It's amazing, but it's not easy. Now, when you are a person that's handling the Padron production and the company right now, we can see your father's legacy. We can taste it and relate to it. When it comes to your own self and going forward, what's your vision as to how Jorge is going to put his fingerprint or his reflection on the brand as a whole? Are you going to continue the amazing culture and tradition of the brand? Or do you believe that, wait a minute, if you look at my cigars, they're pretty much focused on people that know how to smoke, that understand cigars, that have the palate for this kind of tobacco? Am I going to focus or start looking at younger smokers? Am I going to come up with different blends? I don't know, but it's just listening to you talking over the past hour, that's the kind of question that has been brewing and fermenting in my head. And I hope you don't mind me asking it.
No, not at all. I just want to say that my fingerprints are all over this company for many years. In the sense of like all of the introductions of cigars that have been made from the 1964 to today have been ideas that I have proposed to my dad and ideas that I have created blends, and he's approved.
Amazing.
Now, having said that, I always tell my children, the first thing I tell them is, there is a great sense of responsibility in assuming the responsibility of this company. But the important thing is to maintain what you have, because sometimes people in my position try to outdo or try to do things to put listen, we have a Ferrari, okay? I'm not about to try to improve a Ferrari. What I want to do is to maintain the Ferrari, number one, okay? And make sure that we can develop future Ferraris in the same image as the original Ferrari. And that's really what I'm looking at. I am not interested in outdoing my father by any stretch of the imagination. I will never be able to outdo what he did, because he did things in a different time, without resources. I came in at a time with an education, with a financial stability that he didn't have, knowing the language, being able to communicate. My father didn't have a lot of those things, and yet he was able to persevere and get to where he got to and put me in a position to succeed. So that I will never, that is a unique situation that I could never even expect to come close to. If I just get to 70% of what he was, I'm happy. Believe me, he was an extraordinary man. Now, how do I look at this business? This is not, like I said, this is not rocket science. what you have to do is to preserve what you have, maintain the traditions, maintain the quality, build where you can. Okay. For my son, what do I tell my son and my nephew who are here with me in Nicaragua now? They're working with me. They're, as my other nephews that are in Miami. My son is here with me on this trip, as is my nephew. I spent many hours talking to them, trying to explain to them why we are where we are and how we've gotten here, because that's important. You have to understand how you got to where you got to in order to make sure that you appreciate where you are. And that's something that maybe this next generation, they are walking into a completely different situation than what I walked into in 1990. Okay, I'm not trying to say that my situation was that bad, but it wasn't what it is today. And that's really the hard part of, I think, in managing these family businesses, and I think in businesses in general, that you can't lose sight of what it is that made you successful. And you need to understand that in order to be able to preserve and to continue to grow. So I don't really have, I'm a pretty confident guy in what I've done and what I'm doing. And I have a great relationship with all the people that I work with. They trust me, I trust them. And I think, the most important thing for me is to surround myself with good people that are honest and that are trustworthy. I'm not necessarily looking for the rocket science, the Harvard MBA. I'd rather have a guy that I can trust, that has common sense, that will help me, that will not screw me over. Those are the things that I'm looking for. And that's kind of what I try to teach my kids. I go, listen, you guys need to start working from the ground up. You cannot expect to come in here and you don't deserve, at this point, you don't deserve anything. Okay. That's how you need to look at it. You're not entitled to anything here. Okay. Because you need to show that you can manage and drive this Ferrari. And if you can't drive this Ferrari, then you're not going to be in this position. You're always going to benefit, because I would never cut any of my children out. But the keys to the Ferrari are not for everyone, and not everyone can get that. And that's the key: is how do we make sure that this next generation we develop in a way that they understand how to drive that Ferrari. And that's kind of like how I've looked at this thing. And you can't put undue stress on the company either. Many times, well, how are you going to grow? Listen, sometimes success in a company is not necessarily all about growth. There are many things that you can do better internally. You can improve your cost structure, you can improve your profit margins, maybe without necessarily having to grow the company. And those are the type of things that, obviously, I'm not saying that that's what I do, but I'm just saying you have to look at this thing from a very high perspective to be able to understand all of the factors that are going on. We are faced with many challenges. We have a tremendous issue in the US with this FDA regulation that could seriously affect our business and our family for many years. I'm hoping that it's never going to come to that, but that's obviously a consideration. Those are things that we have to think about. We need to be ready for it. Now, is that going to change how we approach our business? Not at all. On the contrary, we keep going forward. We keep doing what we do. We keep improving where we can improve, and that's it. And the rest will take care of. I can't worry about the things that I can't control. Now, the things that I can control, I think about very much every day. And those are the things that I worry about. I don't know if I answered your question, but if I haven't, you can ask me and follow up with any question you want. But again, it's more than anything is I just want to communicate that I don't feel that pressure to have to, one up what my father did. That would be very presumptuous of me to think that I could even get to like a level of like my father who basically, without speaking a language, without having a penny to his name, without having his homeland, and he was able to do what he did, go through all those sacrifices. That takes a certain level of character. And as we say in very rudely amongst the Cubans, it takes cojones to be able to do that, right? And then I hope I don't offend anybody on this call, because that's not the goal, but there's no quite a word like that. That is the word that perfectly captures what I'm trying to say, so.
No, you couldn't have answered it better. And I find an amazing beauty in the level of how humble yet confident you are in the whole process. And I love the component of making sure you pass it on properly to the next generation. That is key, if I may say so. And I thank you for your answer. Please send my best.
Remember that many times maintaining is just as hard as getting there,
if not more. Of course,
and that's something that
we're living
how many times have you seen cigars get rated very high one year and then the next they get rated super low, and there's inconsistencies? And how I like to look at these things is I want to be consistent. I want to be consistent in everything that I do. Okay, and that's the key. So
excellent.
Because I want consumers to trust our brand. That is the key, right? If consumers don't trust what you're doing, then you don't have anything. And that's what we have is our brand. That's what we've worked for. Because when a consumer buys a Padron, they're trusting Padron to be a quality cigar. Correct. And as the ambassador mentioned, that is when you talk to people about cigars, it's a tremendous sense of pride to know that your cigar is one of the cigars that they always think about. I know that there's other ones out there, but to be in that mix, that is priceless. To be able to know that when you speak to any cigar smoker in the world, if you ask them to name their top 5 cigars and we are in those top 5, that is a tremendous, priceless experience to go through, without a doubt.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Please send my best to the team. Cesar, I haven't been in touch with them for a long time. God bless, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for your answer. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Stay well.
I will. Thank you. You too.
Right. Many thanks for the question, and what wonderful words, Mr. Padron. I also have to say that we're getting so many questions on all channels, be it here at the lounge or over on Facebook, and there's so many dear friends and fellows of yours that send their regards, whether it's Jeremiah Mirabfall, Jose Blanco, Karen Berger was there, Rafael Nodal. So I'm so grateful that so many people are watching and tuning into the show together with you. And they're all sending.
Let me just say to all of them, thank you. To all of them, thank you. I mean, they're all my friends, colleagues. Obviously, the Mirafels we've known for many, many years. We've been very close friends, family friends. I have a lot of respect for them and everything that they do. And obviously, all the others that you've mentioned are very close friends of ours that we have so many things in common. And I've been very fortunate to smoke cigars with them on many different occasions. So it's an honor to be here and to have them listening.
And I'm also sorry if we do not manage to get all your questions answered during this show, because we also want to be very respectful of Mr. Padron's precious time. And we also have our 3 giveaways for 3 of our lucky people here via Zoom. But first of all, Brian, you still had a comment, and please unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, yes, thank you. Oh, my dog's barking. Good afternoon. I've got Rain here today. I have a question that I think is relevant, but maybe a little strange. We've had a lot of talk about legacies and family businesses, and I'm an only child, and I escaped my parents and their industry as quickly as I could when I was 18, and so it's a little bit of a foreign idea to me, but obviously you love it, and you're invested in, and it's very successful, and I'm just curious to know just about you as a person. I wouldn't say, is there a passion outside of it, but maybe a hobby? Is there anything else in life that outside of cigars that you just enjoy maybe half as much?
I mean, I've been working a lot over the last 30 years, so I haven't really had too many opportunities to take on a lot of different things. But just recently, I mean, I love the outdoors. And just recently, I started getting into hunting and fishing and a lot of those things. So that's going to be my plan for the next 10 years. I mean, continue working my ass off and making the cigars, but also trying to find some time to go out there and be able to breathe some fresh air as often as I can. So, but again, those are things that are secondary for me, really. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be done in order to be able to enjoy that. But definitely that's something that I would love to take on more. And before I get too old and old to the point where I can't do them anymore. So that's the goal.
Cool. Thank you. Cheers.
All right.
Dejan, time for one more.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Padron.
Man, where are you? You look like you're
I'm-
freezing.
Yes, I am in Vienna. I'm sitting always outside my porch. I have my heaters and I dress really warm. And this is my
You're really
question.
you are a dedicated cigar smoker.
Yes, exactly. And I always smoke outside. I obey the law. I never smoke inside because it's not allowed. So I fix myself with all the indulgences with heaters and everything. I
Excellent.
think to Esteli, it's much nicer to smoke there.
Yes.
So my question is this: your cigars are very prestigious, and do you have problems with counterfeit cigars?
We have had problems with counterfeit cigars in the past. That's been somewhat controlled in terms of what we were experiencing years ago, where it was, very prevalent. We took many steps to stop that and to make it more difficult for people to counterfeit the product. I know that there are counterfeit cigars here in Nicaragua. As a matter of fact, you can buy counterfeit cigars at the airport in Nicaragua, where I have my own store, duty-free store, and yet there's people that sell counterfeit cigars on the ground level of the airport, which I'll have to speak to Ricardo about at some point, but that's not the point here. The point is that there are some counterfeit cigars. I would always say to buy from a reputable dealer, to look for certain signs of things that we've done to protect the brand from counterfeiting, like the serial numbers on the cigars, as well as the hinges on the boxes that say Padron. So there's a lot of things that there's also a lot of common sense that comes into play when you're dealing with counterfeit cigars. You get somebody that comes to offer you a cigar that may sell for $20 and they're selling it to you for $5. Something there is not right. But so, I mean, the whole thing with that is that just to be careful, be vigilant, and buy from reputable people, reputable dealers.
Okay, thank you. So you are investing into this idea that you preserve, that you fight against counterfeit cigars. This is.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We protect our brand as hard as we can. And whenever any situation comes up, we take steps to control it. But obviously, it's very difficult sometimes to know everything that's going on. So if we're ever alerted to anything that's happening, we immediately take action.
Okay,
So
thank you.
If any of you that are on this call ever hear or see or anything that doesn't look right, please let us know. That's how these things get resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as I said, there's so many questions, but
You want to do a couple more, Reinhard? You're good. I mean, you can do a couple more questions if you'd like.
brilliant. Okay, well then one from Alistair over on Facebook that has been very interesting in regards to the consistency of aromatics and the flavor profile, because the Padron blends are iconic, true classics, all-time classics. But would you say that there is a bit of a difference between Padrons of earlier years and decades to the modern expression that you would find on the market today? Do you see a slight evolution there, or would it simply be because of when you keep some of the older cigars and they've been aging for 10, 15 years that they would smoke differently now, obviously?
I mean, there haven't been any changes in how the cigars are made, how the tobacco is fermented, how the tobacco is grown. Everything is still exactly the same. But obviously, with time, there are changes to the tobacco itself over time. We've also, the flavor profiles for us have always been about balance and complexity. We're not a company that is focused on making strong cigars. What we always have focused on is on producing cigars that are balanced, that you can enjoy them all the way to the end, where you have that little piece at the end of the cigar and you don't want to throw it away, that is a sign of a true, well-made, well-blended cigar. When you can smoke it from beginning to end and it never disappoints. I think that my father in that regard was very instrumental for me in teaching me about these things and what is important in a cigar. You know, what is it that we look for as a cigar smoker? Because I know, I forget his name, but the gentleman from Dubai that mentioned something about what was it that he said specifically, which I didn't talk about in the question, but he said it'll come back to me. Oh, I remember now. When he said about changing the taste of the cigars to appeal to different customers. It's funny that he said that, because yesterday or Monday on the way here to Esteli, I was talking to my son and my nephew, and it's about that exact point. And I said to him, because my nephew or my son, I don't remember which, asked, well, who is our demographics? Like, who do we sell to? And I said, I turned around and I said to him, well, listen, we sell to people that know what a great cigar is. And it doesn't matter if they're a woman, if it's a man, if he's 60, if he's 40, if he's 50, if he's 20, if he's 30, that doesn't matter. As long as he's legal, it's fair game. And that's the thing. People's palates have developed. Consumers nowadays have access to much more information, about many different products, and people are much more dedicated now than they might have been 20 years ago. Obviously, I grew up in a Cuban household surrounded by Cubans, and I grew up amongst cigar smokers, probably the most knowledgeable cigar smokers that I will ever encounter. People like my father, his friends that have been smoking for 40 and 50 years in Cuba. And then all of a sudden, now they're smoking Padron and they're happy with our product. So we went through a period where we were already selling to the most discerning customer around. So when I look at this now, I say, well, what am I gonna, who do we want to, well, we want to sell to the same people. We want to sell to the more educated consumers are, the better it is for Padron. The more you know, the harder critic you are about cigars, the better for me, for Padron. I welcome that. And I welcome that challenge to sell to anyone or put my product up against any product, because I know we're making a great cigar. But I know that we also have a tremendous amount of loyal customers that we have earned their trust over many, many years. And that only happens because of the consistency and because of the philosophy, which is to make these cigars that are balanced, complex, not one-dimensional. I mean, listen, I can make a cigar that will blow your head off, but what's the point of that? I mean, you can't enjoy that. You may smoke half of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there may be some people out there who like that, but that's not what we're about. Our cigars are not that. If that's what you're looking for, then don't smoke a Padron, because that's not who we are. We have cigars that actually, I think the slower you smoke them, the better they're going to taste. The more slowly you draw on that cigar, the more flavor you're going to get out of the cigar. And that's really the challenge. The challenge in making great cigars is to make them balanced and complex. Period, dot, end of story. That is the challenge. Blending it with the right tobacco to get that combination. And that's really what we strive for. So going back to the gentleman from Dubai, that was a comment that I wanted to touch on that I didn't when I answered your question. But
yeah, Reinhard is the gentleman's name, and thank you for following up on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Thank you.
I also wanted to briefly follow up on what you just mentioned and the consistency. Earlier, you said you don't use social media, for example. Do you think that in today's day and age, and we live in disruptive times, that's for sure, it's all about that consistency and keeping things as they have been for decades? Or do you also think that, well, there's certain things you have to adjust to, there's things you need to also factor into your business, and where you need to adapt to what's going on in the world? Or do we also need these fortresses and strongholds of,
well, does Chateau Lafite Does Chateau Lafite change what they do? Does Vega Sicilia? Does Gaia? There are certain things that you just don't mess around with. And I think, I'm certainly not comparing myself to Lafite, but I'm just saying that there's a philosophy there in how they run their business, and they know who they are and who they sell to and what they do. And that's kind of what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that I'm Lafite. I'm saying that there is a commitment to a certain way of thinking on how we're going to do things. And that's what you can't mess around with.
Does
Perfect.
that mean there's a Chateau Lafite version of Padron coming out? I just had to put that in. Sorry, excuse me.
Listen,
Reinhard, I hope you don't mind.
if we would ever be compared to brands like that, it would be a tremendous honor. I mean, honestly, those are obviously brands that transcend, it's just transcendental brands that are iconic in every sense of the word. And I think going back to the social media thing, I think the issue is not that I'm not on social. I personally am not on social media. Obviously, our company is on social media, and there's a lot of action that goes on with that. But I almost feel like it's better for me just to stay focused on what I do and what I like to do, and not get so bogged down with all these other things that are going on around you, where it could tend to stray you away from the core essence of what it is that makes you successful. So certainly not downplaying the importance of social media, but just personally for me, it helps me stay focused on what I got to do.
I'm very grateful and glad that Reinhold is here with us tonight as well. And he had a more personal question for you regarding your upcoming birthday.
Yeah, thank you, Reinhard. Jorge, 2 weeks from today, you're celebrating your birthday. And congratulations already. When you reach into your humidor in 2 weeks, do you know what you're going to pick up?
For sure.
Which one?
A Padron. You knew that was coming.
No, I know. But do you usually?
Listen, Rael, I have so many cigars that, I mean, I always smoke all of our cigars. I mean, obviously, I have favorites that I like to smoke because more than anything because of time, and that's just the nature of what we do. I'm a person that smokes a lot of family reserves. I smoke a lot of the 85, the 80th, the 90th. So, I mean, I really can't go wrong with any pick that I make, I think. But, I can assure you it will be a Padron, and there won't just be one. There'll be a few. So,
no,
maybe I can go through the entire portfolio on the 17th. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to start real early.
Thanks.
Before we wrap things up, we prepared a little something for our community because it's been almost a year of Light 'em Up Lounge. We actually started on the 20th of March last year, and we're so grateful that you guys are still with us. Many more that are just discovering us for the first time. And we had such a wonderful turnout today. So many people logging in here via Zoom, and many, many more watching over on Facebook. So we prepared a little thank you for today's show. And we have 3 Padron 88 natural samplers that we are sending to dear friends and people who support us and to tuned in to our little raffle and giveaway this week. So we had a little fairy dust sprinkled over them and had a look into the Wheel of Fortune. And the 3 people that will have the tremendous pleasure of enjoying these giveaways are Simone, Mr. Hape, and Jim. So the 3 of you, please stay with us for a bit after we wrap things up. And I will send you my personal email so we can make sure we send those wonderful cigars to you. But that's just a little something and a little thank you from us here at Light 'em Up for all the people who support us. And we're truly grateful for the entire family and your continued support. So please make sure that you also follow our upcoming schedule, and you will find all the information on lightemupworld.com, as always, on the Cigar Journal Facebook page and on the Cigar Journal website. And we thoroughly appreciate all of you being with us. Next week, we have Eric Espinosa from Espinosa Cigars tuning in. And I'm so grateful that Mr. Padron, you took the time and spent this wonderful hour and a half with us and shared the wonderful stories, the legacy and the philosophy of Padron that is absolutely unique, and it truly shone in this wonderful session. So thanks for everything that you shared with us.
Reinhard, thank you and your team, obviously your audience, for taking the time to connect today. It's always a privilege for me to be able to meet new people and to get explain a little more about Padron, and so people know kind of what is behind the company. Obviously, as I've said already in this session, I take a great deal of responsibility in what I do. I understand that it takes many cigars to build a loyal following and a loyal brand, a brand that is successful. And it only takes a few bad cigars to lose that. So I wake up every day hungry with the idea of maintaining what we've got and of continuing to develop our family and our family business. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I want to wish you all a great night.
Thank you. And also I have to say thank you to Reinhard yet again, first of all, for all the tremendous work that Cigar Journal is doing, and for the support that we share, and also for putting us in contact, obviously, and making this show happen, which is a tremendous honor and pleasure for me. So again, thank you to you as well, Reinhard, for helping us out with this wonderful opportunity. One final question for you, Mr. Padron, before we log off. We also spoke a lot about your father, about the legacy of the family, and out of curiosity, if you would have the chance in a few years from now, sit down again with your father, have a cigar and share a conversation, what would be the one thing that you would like to tell him?
Dad, I didn't fuck it up. I haven't fucked it up. Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I visit his gravesite often. I go once every 2 months, once a month I go. And I always ask him to give me the strength to do and continue his legacy. So I'm happy with that.
I couldn't think of a better way to end this wonderful conversation. Thank you again so much.
Alrighty.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
All the very best.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy many Padrones.